People ask me all the time when they meet me and they hear what I do. They say, "Well, isn't your job going to be obsolete in 5, 10 years?" And I say, "I don't agree with that, but you're entitled to your opinion, and here's why." I think that AI can do from very mundane and low-level tasks in terms of sourcing candidates. It can do that. I think it can source candidates. I think it can reach out to candidates. I think it can even interview candidates at a very broad degree. But what it can't do, in my opinion, and maybe it'll get there someday, but not right now, is it cannot assess personality traits. It cannot tell you, hey, this person's very humble. Hey, this person's got an ego. Hey, this person's, really not a great manager. This person's got a short fuse. They're not very patient. There are intangibles with that I think you need a human element of touch to be able to, and that's where I think we excel, is our ability to assess the personality fit beyond just what qualifies on paper on a resume.
The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you're ambitious, but are manual tasks like admin, lead generation, nurturing, and onboarding holding you back from truly scaling your business? Imagine saving dozens of hours every week, freeing you to deepen client relationships and execute high-impact strategy. Our clients aren't just imagining it. They're saving countless hours per week and doubling their revenue within months. We custom-build AI automation systems that eliminate the grind. From effortless lead generation and nurturing to seamless onboarding, we give you back the most valuable resource, your time, so you can focus on building those vital human connections and driving strategic growth. Stop letting repetitive tasks limit your potential. It's time to build a business that works for you, not the other way around. Ready to unlock your true scaling power? Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free AI audit call today to discover how you can save time and double your revenue. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the Intelligence Forge YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode.
Leveraging AI to transform talent acquisition in family office and real estate recruitment. Welcome to the Intelligence Forge. I'm thrilled to have David with us today. David is the principal at the Quest organization, one of the nation's leading recruitment firms specializing in family office, real estate, and construction placement. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Guys, I'd like you to start by introducing yourself, the Quest organization, and your live here in your own world. Tell us what makes your firm unique in the recruitment space.
Happy to. So, my father actually started this firm back in 1985. So we are family owned and operated. And we are very, our trajectory very unorthodox in how we both got into the business. So my father started as an accountant and he worked with Deloitte in the Big Four and, actually, went the CPA track, got certified and went to a recruiting firm to find a job in accounting. And that's when he got poached to say, hey, maybe you should consider recruitment. And they actually flipped him and convinced him to leave the accounting world and become a recruiter. Kind of a crazy thing. But they did it, and he took a risk while he was young, and he decided to pursue it, and he did very well, excelled at it. So much so that he ended up running offices in New York and Chicago. Eventually wanted to go off on his own, start his own firm, and that's kind of how he got into starting Quest back 40 years ago. And the rest is kind of history for him. So he's been running this firm for a long, long time. And then I came along and I said, what do I do with my career? And he said, go to school for accounting because that's where, great place to start your career, lots of jobs. So I did just that. And, about 3 years into my accounting career, I knew that was not something I wanted to do long term as well. So kind of went to dad and said, hey, what do I do with this? I have a CPA, I'm certified, I've got credentials, I've got all this experience, but I don't like it. It's not passionate about it. So he said, well, you could come work with me and try this like I did. I could place you in private and you go become an accountant somewhere else. That was a nice fallback option. He said, or, you stick it out or you change career entirely. So those are kind of your options. So I looked at it as a low risk, high reward move to join dad and see if I liked it, see if it stuck. Always had a knack for sales, didn't know what I could do with it, but kind of, like I said, fell into this business by accident, went to join dad. And after about 2 weeks, I closed my first deal. I knew after that there was no going back for me. The rush of the closing a deal and just being able to kind of be rewarded for your hard work, I felt like I wasn't getting that on the accounting side. So that's what drove me to the business. 10 years later, here I am. So, I have not left since in the same place since 10 years ago. And now I'm more or less running the day to day, and dad is still involved, but he's really groomed me over the last 10 years to run the firm. So that's my kind of quick story of how I got into the business. And I truly love it. Work does not feel like work to me, which I think is the American dream, right?
Yeah.
I love getting up in the morning and doing what I do and being able to help people, being able to use my expertise in my accounting career to kind of transition to what I do now. What I think kind of segue to your question, what makes us different? I think the fact that we have CPAs on our leadership team is one thing that sets us apart from a lot of the other firms that are out there. Most of them do not have that industry experience that they bring to the table. We've been through the hardships of busy season and accounting and tax season that a lot of the other recruiters out there can't say that they have. So when we're placing accountants and we go to prospect, to clients to pitch to help them with roles, we can explain that we have the industry backgrounds and we understand what they're looking for to fill these positions. And we relate, I think, a lot more to the candidates we deal with because we come from those backgrounds. So that's just one area. The other areas, as you mentioned, we specialize in family office, real estate, and construction. That's really the bulk of what we do. I'd say about 90% or more of what we do is on those three kind of buckets. So we're
Right.
very niche focused in what we do. And I think that's where we excel. So anybody on the real estate side, in terms of an owner operator, a development firm, a property management firm, on the construction side, general contracting firms, subcontracting firms, and then family offices. What I mean by that is high net worth individuals, high net worth families, both single and multi-family offices across the United States, wealth management firms. That's where we excel. That's where we do our best work. So, just a little bit on kind of how we differentiate ourselves and set ourselves apart from what's out there.
Wow, fantastic. That's a beautiful journey that you share there. I mean, one will have also thought that since you see the pattern as your dad pivot into, recruitment, maybe at the beginning you'll have told yourself, no, I'm not going to become an accountant. I'm just going to start studying it. But again, well, you never can tell. Probably you want to test it and see if you like it. But it's good news that at the end of the day, you ended up where you are today and you are happy about it. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Let's go back to the beginning, the very moment. I know you said that you didn't start this from scratch, so you just joined your dad. But if you know this story, how did this journey started with him? So the question will be starting Quest organization. What was the initial funding situation when it began? What motivated the start of Quest organization? Because you look at some organization at the beginning, they don't have a lot of capital, you have to source for capital, some it bootstrapped. But what's the story about Quest organization?
Yeah, it's a great question, and my dad can better answer it than I can. But as I understand it, my father grew up in a very tough upbringing. He grew up in the projects of Brooklyn. He had very little money, very little capital, to answer your question. But he was a top producer for many years while he was in this business and got to a point where he felt like, I could do this on my own. I want to be able to build a business and be able to support my family and not have to report to other people and work for other people. So I think he kind of took a leap of faith on himself. I believe he took a line of credit out to help funding in the beginning, because at that point when you're kind of supporting yourself, his father left him when he was young, so he didn't have that to fall back on. So he grew up in a tough environment. I was very fortunate to not have those circumstances, but he kind of took a bet on himself that he was going to do well. Had already done well in this business, and it panned out. He bet on himself. It worked. He was successful. He started to build out and hire people beneath him and developed the niche that I just mentioned. Started in more of a financial services niche, doing banking and investment firms and other things, morphed that into more of these as it's become more popular now to family offices and high net worth individuals, and pivoted that into real estate because a lot of these high net worth folks own and operate real estate portfolios. So it all kind of goes in tandem. And then when you do the real estate stuff, they do construction, right? So all three of those kind of domino effect, one into another. And that's the interesting aspect of what we do. It's all kind of interrelated, if you will. But his funding situation was very weak at the time that he started this firm, and he had to kind of, like I said, the bit of a gamble on himself to be successful. And eventually he was able to upgrade his office space. He took a tiny little space in the beginning, probably the size of a studio dorm in college, and eventually, like I said, got onto 7th Avenue, Manhattan, and was in, I think it was 11 Penn at one point, and eventually to 1 Penn, right in Penn Station. So that's his kind of story. But like I said, that's a very abbreviated version that he could elaborate much more on than I can.
So, but thank you so much for sharing the result. Well, let's go to the next level. You are now the CEO of the company. Definitely, you know where the company is today. How many people you have in your team right now? And what does it look like in the next 12 years? What do you see this company grow into?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Dad will not be shy about saying that his weakest point is management of people, and I think that he's had some turnover in the past because of that. As smart and successful as he's been, he's had trouble retaining people for the long haul because it can be tough to work for, right? I'm his son, so it's easy for me to say that. He's easy to be and dad and son, right? It's easy to do that, but when you put on your work hat, it's a little bit different, I think, and so he's fully aware that it was not his strong suit, but that actually is one of my strong suits. So when I came into this business, my goal was to be able to use the management skills I had to be able to build a team around me and be able to build a team that we've been able to retain. So when I came in here 10 years ago, it was me, one other recruiter, and it was Dad. It was three of us. Today we're eight. So we've more than doubled in size in the 10 years I've been here, and I'm looking to continue to expand that, to answer your question over the next 10, 15 years. I mean, I'd love to see us get to 15, 20 people, right? That would be, I think, my goal. I think with the type of work that we do, you don't want to get too large because I think there is a family aspect and family environment to, our culture and our environment at Quest, and I don't want to lose sight of that by having this big corporate America, right? I would never want to get to a point where we're so big that you're just a name on a piece of paper. I think you lose sight of the real goal in doing that, and you lose some of the cultural aspects of the firm. So for me, it's getting to that 15, 20, maybe 25 on the higher end. I don't think I'd want to be much larger than that. I think that's to me that's what success looks like, and then obviously revenues coming along with that to get there, right? Organic growth, having to hire people because we need them, not because we want them. I think there are some firms that will just hire people to say, "Hey, we have this many people working for us," but you can't do that if you can't support the infrastructure. So I think for us, it's getting to a point where we organically need to get there, and that the rest kind of comes with it naturally.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. Very fascinating. All right, let's think about the tech stack that powers your recruitment operation. Beyond the obvious AI tools like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Gemini, that everyone is experimenting with. What specific AI tools or technology are you currently using to stay competitive in your day-to-day recruitment process?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think LinkedIn and other tools that we use have kind of forced us to adopt this, and they're continuing to force us to adopt it by putting it into their their everyday lives, right? But I think ChatGPT is. I have a tab of ChatGPT open every day on my laptop. I don't go a day without using it. We use it for just about everything, right? Job descriptions, coming up with maybe a better way to word an email than I could word it because a computer's gonna be able to do that better than me. So maybe I'm trying to phrase something, but I can't figure out the right words. Maybe my email is too long and I want to shorten it so it's short, sweet, to the point. There's so many ways you can use it to take some of the mundane tasks out of your day. So that's just one aspect. I think from a recruiting standpoint, we're using it to source candidates as well. We're using the platform that we use, our ATS is called Loxo, which is a ATS and CRM built in one, and it has a built-in AI feature where it can match candidates to the jobs that we have open. So you don't have to kind of start from scratch, so to speak. You're looking, it's pulling keywords from your job description, it's pulling knowledge of the industry and all of what it has to be able to pull together a pool of candidates that based on what we've presented as information available makes sense and match. And it'll give you a matching score up to 10. So, you'll see sevens, eights, nines, tens, and generally it's pretty accurate. So that's another thing we're utilizing. But like I said, LinkedIn, when we're doing sourcing on LinkedIn, it'll help us to post the jobs. It'll help us to source the candidates on LinkedIn using AI to come up with search parameters and things like that. So just the goal of it really is to take time out of our day from the manual tasks that I think we were doing for many, many years prior to this being implemented. I think, having said that, there's a lot of ways we can still implement more of it, but I'd say we're kind of middle of the way there in terms of what, we definitely are using it on a daily basis, but I think everybody could always say, we could use it, we could utilize it more in some way.
Yes.
More.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right. Let's go to the magic one question. Everyone has to answer this question. So it's your turn. If you are a magic one today and you could instantly improve one thing about the course organization's official tomorrow, what will it be and why?
So I think, yeah, I've been asked this question before, and I think my answer is always the same. It's to get my whole team doing, really full blown 360 recruitment. And so I'm primarily the one bringing in a lot of the leads and generating a lot of the leads for our firm. But my staff are so busy filling our jobs that they don't always have the time to do both sides of the deal. So I'd love to see, and I think that sets you up for organic growth, right? If everyone is bringing in new business, you're going to probably need to hire more people to fill all the jobs that are coming in. But if I'm primarily the one doing the heavy lifting and everyone is filling my jobs, there's only so many arms and legs that I have to spread. So I think my magic wand would be to have everybody doing as much as I am on the lead generation front, and being able to have everybody contribute a little bit more on a 360 basis so that we can continue to organically grow. That would fix my immediate, short term, I guess, concern or goal, I guess, if you will.
I think first one with that. Well, let's take a little bit still deeper into that. So, will you share with us how are you doing that lead generation currently? Because what I was going to ask you is, have you thought about cloning yourself so that whatever you're doing, you could do it in multiple times? But will you share with us how you do it, and then we can explore that further?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I have thought about. I wish that was a possibility, right? If I could clone myself, I would. But I'm also doing the job of, I think, a lot of people. So I'm managing my staff. I'm running the business. I'm doing account management. I'm helping to close deals. I'm overseeing my recruiters and managing what they're doing in their process. And then on top of all that, I'm doing the lead generating and business developments. It's hard to balance and manage it all, but at the end of the day, I'm able to obviously give these guys a solid workflow so that they have enough on their plate to be busy. Where we're falling short, like I said, if I had to pick an area where we're falling short, it's that my team doesn't have as many of those leads coming through the door as I do, and that would solve our more immediate issues. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of what I would say with regard to that.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. You're placing people in roles that ranges from 100K to over 450K annually. These are outstate, high value placement. Do you believe that if you do automate some of those manual tasks, some of those repetitive business processes, it could immediately, leads to some measurable increase in the revenue or placement velocity. What's your opinion about automation in terms of your processes and your repetitive task?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, I think we utilize it to, broad degree, but I think we could always utilize it better. I think Loxo happens to be one of the more cutting edge platforms out there that houses everything for you in one place, so you don't have to jump from tab to tab to do certain tasks like I think you do with certain other platforms. But could we utilize it better? Could we utilize it more? Sure. I think there's always opportunities to do that. I think I'm always open to those types of things. So, I think it's just a matter of kind of exploring what's out there and seeing what makes sense for us. But I think the opportunity for us is there within the platform. I think our team just needs to familiarize ourselves a little bit more with the features that are available to us. For example, there's a lot of automation features that are built into Loxo that we don't use right now because my team just kind of is still learning. For example, you move a candidate from submitted to rejected, it'll automatically send them a rejection email. We don't utilize that feature. We probably should, because it saves you the time of sending an email and saying, hey, you're not a fit for this position. And there are other automations that tons of automations that you can build in. So I think, like I said, the opportunity for us is there. We just have to spend a little bit more time digging into what's available to us and actually implementing and using those things.
Thank you so much. There's always room for improvement in everything that we do. And thank you so much for owning up to that. Now, I mentioned that you have about 14,600 followers on LinkedIn. You're actively posting about your opening, positions. What has been your strategy in terms of your social media and content strategy? How has that been working for you so far?
Yeah, so I think we have our assistant primarily running that for us. So we don't utilize Instagram as much. I'd say it's more so our Twitter, which is now X, and Facebook account, and certainly LinkedIn is our number one tool, right? That's where we have all the followers. So we will post things on Facebook. I don't think that's where we're getting a lot of traffic. We just do it to try to market ourselves in as much as as much of light as possible. But the majority of our network is going to be on LinkedIn. So that's where we're posting constantly about current events, about doing polls and asking questions about things that are relevant in today's society. About work from home is a big topic today, right? So we're always asking questions about that, and that piques people's interest because it's a hot topic, right? AI, also another hot topic where we're doing polls on. So I think that that catches people's interest. And like I said, because we're so niche and specialized in what we do, a lot of people in the family office, in the real estate, and the construction sector kind of come running our way because they want to follow us. They want to see what kind of jobs we're posting. They want to see what kind of information we have in the industry and the trends in the industry. So it's really, if I have one bit of advice for anybody out there that's starting out in the business, is to develop a niche. If you don't, then you're like everybody else. And I think specializing in something is how you set yourself apart from the rest of the pack out there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's dive into the main topic of today, AI-driven transformation in recruitment. From your perspective, as someone who's been in this space for nearly a decade now, how do you see like changing the landscape of specialized recruitment, particularly in family office and real estate placement?
Yeah, it's a valid question, and I think it's tough to really say where it's going to go, but inevitably, they're going to try and replace us all, right? I think that's the end game of anybody, with this AI stuff. It's to replace humans in doing not just recruitment, but in everything.
Mm.
I do think for what it's worth, and my take on it, because people ask me all the time when they meet me and they hear what I do, they say, "Well, isn't your job going to be obsolete in 5, 10 years?" And I say, I don't agree with that, but you're entitled to your opinion, and here's why. I think that AI can do from very mundane and low level tasks in terms of sourcing candidates. It can do that. I think it can source candidates. I think it can reach out to candidates. I think it can even interview candidates at a very broad degree. But what it can't do, in my opinion, and maybe it'll get there someday, but not right now, is it cannot assess personality traits. It cannot tell you, hey, this person's very humble. Hey, this person's got an ego. Hey, this person's, really not a great manager. This person's got a short fuse. They're not very patient. There are intangibles with that I think you need a human element of touch to be able to, and that's where I think we excel, is our ability to assess the personality fit beyond just what qualifies on paper on a resume, especially in a family office environment where everything is confidential, everything is very, again, you're playing with big dollars here, billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar family offices. Culture fit is important. Being able to trust somebody is super important. Are you really going to rely on a robot or a machine to vet out that person who's going to be handling billions of dollars for you? I don't know that in our space that's going to be a thing. And maybe, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but my opinion, I think that there is a human touch element to this business that you're not going to lose. You're not going to want to lose. I think it's going to produce a lot of the wrong hires if you go that route and start relying on it too heavily. But I will say at lower levels, entry level people, I think there's an opportunity for it to replace us to some degree if it's very low level, entry level positions. But the more experienced, the C-suite, the directors, I think we're always going to need recruiters in the business to do that and to really properly vet out the personalities.
Perfectly agree with you. The human touch, the element of human touch is very important. We tell people, even when we are telling people on the phone, we tell them, do not do everything 100%. There must be an aspect about, even if it's for you to review it, for you to be clear on it, there must be an element of human touch whereby human has to talk and see that yes, everything is up to date, everything is okay before you send it out there. Yeah, so in terms of what you just explained, I think you're right, I will agree with you. But let's think about other challenges that you've seen, maybe not in your own organization, generally amongst your colleagues, among the people you've spoken with. And what are challenges that you think is making people not to implement into their business? Probably the reason why some of them are holding back, is it because of training? Is it because of finding the right tools? Is it because some clients don't want to accept AI or technology? What have you seen so far that has been the biggest challenge when it comes to incorporating technology or AI into businesses, especially in the recruitment workflow?
Yeah, I can't speak for the recruitment world as a whole. I think I can speak for just companies in general and a lot of my clients and why they haven't implemented it. I think that's you're seeing the older generation that a lot of these companies are still run by, and they're reluctant to adopt new technology. They're reluctant to change things from their ways that they've always done it. My dad is is one of those. You know, when you're cut from a different generation, I think it's hard for you to kind of, this generation is coming out of a pre-iPhone world, a computer world even. And as these kids get to now implement robots and AI, it's a lot for them to understand and be able to comprehend that. So I think it's easier for the, my generation and the younger generation to understand that because we kind of grew up with it. Whereas companies that are still run by, that generation, it's a little more challenging for them to want to give up. I think control is really what it comes down to, is giving up what they've known to work for so many years and what has produced success. And to them, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's kind of the biggest reason people don't want to change what they're doing. If it's working and we're making money, why not? But then the younger and the newer generation is thinking, well, what if we can do it better? What if we can make more money? What if we can do it more efficiently and save time? And that is, I think, the difference and the mentality that you see.
All right. Well, I think it's funny now. A lot of people are skeptical. They want to see other people do. They want to see it work. I mean, we talk about the early adopters who do not even think about any consequences. They just jump into it. And we also have the late adopters who definitely look at what other people are doing, how it's working, and then they jump into it late. Well, I think every organization is different. I think the most important thing is for us to be open to it. Either you're using it immediately, either we are postponing it, either we are testing it out, whichever way. I think our open-mindedness is very important in adoption of technology or AI into our business. But thank you so much for sharing what you are seeing out there. Now, you mentioned earlier in your magic one question that you could actually, if you could, make your team member to be able to bring in leads or clients, like you do, that will be something you will definitely love. I just want us to touch into how is that impacting your bottom line currently that they are now doing that. And if you are able to achieve that also, maybe elaborate about how do you think that will be a game changer for your organization?
Yeah, so, again, I think it's more so limiting the upside of what we can do. It's not as much as it's limiting the bottom line as it is we can do so much more with the resources that we have. I think that's kind of where I was going with it. So if I have 4 or 5 recruiters that are all doing 180 and they could be doing 360, it's just more opportunity to be able to bill more with the resources that we have instead of hiring additional resources, right? So I think it just kind of comes down to being able to balance your time, being able to turn candidates into jobs and turn candidates into clients. I think that's a learned skill. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's something that took me a long time to be able to figure out and do. But that's an area where I think there's opportunity. And they're contributing on that front, but not, like I said, to the degree that I am, because they're so bogged down filling the 40, 50 open recs that we have at any point in time, which is a lot for a team of our size. So I think it's a balancing act and being able to manage the positions we have open to satisfy our clients and their demands, but to also put in the time and be resourceful in turning some of those candidates into other positions that can be filled. And that's the opportunity that's there. And like I said, I'm always looking to hire people to help with that. I think there's a need for salespeople in this market that can go out and produce new business and produce new revenue and be able to come in and bring those accounts in. Finding people to fill the jobs to me is the easier skill set in our business. The sales aspect is the thing that's harder to find and harder to come by.
Oh, all right. Thank you. I would love to hear about one of the best solution you are able to deliver to one of your clients. You don't necessarily have to mention their name, but I think our audience will be interested to know in terms of the issue they are facing before you met them or before they became your client, what meets a particular challenge that they are, facing, what is the solution and the approach that you actually adopted to give them the result, and what was the result at the end of the day. It's just for our audience to understand the process that you go through when you meet a new client and you work them through them and you're able to satisfy them and they become an happy client.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Of course. I have a lot of these stories, but I'll try and pick one that's most relevant. There was a firm that came to us that, with a role that had been open for, I think, about, 6 to 8 months, maybe more. And they were struggling. They were using a recruiting firm at the time and they were struggling to fill the position. They said, we're looking to kind of, get additional resources to help us with this. We're not kind of getting the results that we were hoping for. And ultimately the role is not getting filled. So the first thing I do when somebody tells me that is I need to do two things. One is understand what what are we seeing? What's the problem, right? We have to identify the problem to be able to identify a solution to that. But the other second thing I do is a lot of listening. And my strategy with these calls with clients is to let them do most of the talking and me do the listening. And then if I have follow-up questions, I'll always follow up with that. But I want to understand from their end, where are we going wrong? Why are the people that we're seeing not cutting it? Where are they coming up short? Is it a personality thing? Is it a skill set thing? Is it that they don't want to come to an office 5 days a week? Because that is a big one today. Is it a tech savvy thing? But are they not good enough with tools like Excel and doing things in Excel? Or what are the pain points? Are the candidates not representing themselves correctly? There's just so many variables when it comes to our business and understanding that. So the first thing I did in that scenario was ask my client, what has happened over the past, walk me through what's happened over the past 6 to 8 months. And in this situation, it was a case where the fit was a big issue. I think the personality fit was not right. Candidates were also very jumpy. I think moving around every 2 years, every 1.5, 2 years, 3 years. There wasn't a lot of stability. So I think they saw candidates that were okay, but nobody was knocking their socks off. Nobody was pushing them to say, we need to, you really need to hire this person. So I met with them for about an hour plus, really listened to what things they needed, what things they wanted. And we filled the position in less than 60 days. And that was, so something that was open for over half a year, we filled in less than 60 days because we listened. We took the time to understand. We also took the time to guide them. And that's, I think, another area where we excel. We don't just fill the jobs that we are given, right? I think that's what a lot of firms will do. Here's the job description, send me resumes, we pay you your fee, right? That's a lot of the models that are out there. But what we do has more of an advisory and consulting component to what we do. Because we have the industry backgrounds, we can sit down with our clients and say, are we really being realistic with what we're asking for and what we're paying to get this person that you need? For example, I've had clients come to me and say, I need a controller. I'm paying $100,000. And I tell them, that's not a controller. That's a senior accountant. So we need to understand and distinguish the difference between what you're looking for and what you can actually get. And sometimes explaining that to them and showing them different levels of people gets them to budge either on a salary to go higher to get what they need, or maybe they're just decided, hey, we don't need a controller. We actually need a senior accountant or a bookkeeper. So in this situation with this particular client, we did have to do some shifting with the salary. It turns out they were not paying enough. That was one aspect of why they were not getting what they needed. They were about 20 to 30 grand below market for what they needed to spend to get the right person. So we upped the salary a little bit. We also tweaked the job description. We helped with that. And we tweaked the job description to emphasize some of the things that we talked about that were not in the original job description, which is short selling exposition. And we also understood, like I said, what are the important personality and culture, aspects that are going to make this person successful. We actually went physically to their office and understood the culture and the environment and saw the dynamic of the leadership team and the people beneath. And that helps so much to understand and be able to convey to the people we're recruiting. So when you couple all that together, put all that together, it's a recipe for success because you're listening, you're understanding, you're taking in, and you're finding the people that fit those qualifications. I hate to, use the example and sound cliche, but we are essentially like a dating service in what we do. We are matching people to people. Is that right? Not romantically, of course, but from a personality perspective, we're putting two people together and making sure that they can coexist on a daily basis, 5 days a week, and work in the same place together and be able to be productive. So it is a lot like a dating service because if those personalities clash, you're going to have a big problem. Even if the person is so smart and can do the job 100%, if they don't mesh well with the team, it's all for
That's true. No, that's true. And I agree with you because at the end of the day, you also want to have good proportion. You don't want to recruit for somebody in one position. Maybe you have to get two, three, four, five candidates within 6 months because they couldn't cope. Yeah, so definitely matching the right people to the right people, very important. But thank you so much for sharing and elaborating on your process, which is really, really very fantastic. You really solving the problem for the people. However, this is what I had. When you solve problems for a particular complaint for your client, it doesn't mean that you didn't also have your own challenges here and there. But what's one thing that one thing that you think, well, if you could be able to solve to do it will be a big game changer to your organization. So I'm not asking you based on your explanation or based on your elaboration, based on what you just explained, how you solve other people's problem. Basically, we have something that keeps you awake at night. That's you are saying looking at solving it at one stage or the other. Is there anything like that that you want to share with us as we wrap up?
Again, I kind of draw it back to just turning my team into machine 360 recruiters. That is the thing I keep going back to because that is, I think, what holds us back from getting to the next level, right? I only have so many arms and legs and right, I can only do so much as one human being. But if I can get my team to be more of an extension of myself and doing what I can do, that is going to enable us to do so much more. That will keep me up at night because I know how much opportunity there is that we're not,
Utilize.
capitalized on.
Yeah.
So I keep bringing back that same example, but that to me is really the next step for us, and that's my goal for 26 and 27 and beyond is to make these guys into machine 360 recruiters.
All right, thank you so much. As we are all, I want to be able to give a piece of advice to anyone, any business owner, recruitment company, professional service, or whatever business is that's, maybe sitting in your seat right now in terms of adopting AI, management, running a business. What piece of advice will you be able to, give at this stage to anyone?
Yeah, so again, alluded to it before. I think develop a niche first and foremost is important. Develop something that you are good at and that is going to set you apart from everybody else out there first and foremost, right? I think with regard to AI, be open-minded. And I think that's a general piece of advice that I have is be open-minded and speaking with others and seeing what kind of solutions that other people may have, what's worked for them. Just because something hasn't worked for you doesn't mean it can't if you do it differently. So I think just something that's been for me, I'm a very open-minded individual and I'm always speaking to as many people as I can to get perspectives on things and understand and trying things. And you know what? It's okay if you try something and it doesn't work because you learn from that. And your failures lead to your success. That's how I believe it anyway. So my advice would be don't be afraid to fail because you got to take a step back to take several steps forward.
All right, fantastic. I believe that advice will help somebody out there listening and watching this podcast. Well, thank you so much. Now, if any of our listeners, any of our audience at one stage want to get in touch with you, probably they've got their own company and they're looking for your services, the kind of service you offer, or maybe they are even candidates and they want you to help from match them forward to an organization based on their skills. How can they find you?
Sure, so I mean, the best way is LinkedIn, I would say. That's where we live and breathe, right? So find LinkedIn, David Rosenblatt on LinkedIn, and you'll see me right there. You can also go to our website at questorg.com and shoot us an email or submit a form through our contact form as well. But those would be the best ways to get us.
Fantastic. And also, thank you so much for your time, for sharing such valuable insight into the recruitment industry and your business. It has been an incredible, enlightening conversation. Our audience definitely value your insight. So, thank you so much for coming through, and we wish you well in your future endeavor.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you so much.
You didn't quit your day job to become a full-time admin assistant. The Intelligence Forge podcast is sponsored by Permasize AI Forge. At Permasize AI Forge, we know you didn't start your business to spend 60 hours a week on paperwork, chasing leads, and managing endless admin tasks. You started it to build something meaningful and serve your clients. But right now, you're trapped in the day-to-day grind instead of growing your business. What if I told you our clients are reclaiming 15, 20 hours per week, increasing their revenue by 30 to 50% within 6, 12 months, and finally getting their lives back? We don't just automate random tasks. We build custom AI systems that eliminate the bottlenecks choking your growth, from leads generation to lead, nurturing and management to project management to client follow-ups. Stop paying for an expensive, frustrating manual system. It's time to upgrade to strategic automation. Visit PermasizeAIForge.com and book your free business transformation strategy call today. Discover exactly how much time and money you're losing to manual processes and how to get both back. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Intelligence Forge, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode packed with game-changing insights. Your future automated business is waiting.